Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to talk about, in my opinion, the greatest hellspawn out there, Gunslinger. Now, are we going to be talking about Jeremy? Are we going to be talking about Javi? Or are we talking about Tobias? Now, if I've confused you, I promise you, by the end of this video, you won't be. I've also got some Spawn Network news, and I've also got your contest winner for you. So, have a seat, stick around, and let's talk Spawn. I would like to thank you guys for coming over here and giving me a follow and supporting my channel. Like I've said, this has been a passion project of mine for a while now, and I've wanted to do it. And the fact that you guys have come over here and shown your love and support, I really appreciate it. Just be sure to do the usual, like, follow, subscribe, all that jazz. I don't want to keep harping on all that stuff, but the more interactions my channel gets, the more it can grow, and the more members of the Spawn community can come over here and find us and join us. So, if you would, please just, all that jazz, like, follow, and subscribe. Now, for your Spawn Network news that is worthy of the news. This week, there's not really a whole lot going on, but I would like to give a big congratulations and a shout out to 9.9 Newsstand. He had a Malibu Sun 13 PSA graded 10 that sold over at the Heritage Auction for over $20,000. That is crazy. Let alone it was a PSA graded 10, but for $20,000. Congratulations on the sale. Now, that being said, I have to say that book is blown way out of proportion. In my opinion, that book is not even on my radar. I have zero FOMO when it comes to the Malibu Sun 13. That thing goes for, quite a bit of money, and I have no desire to have it in my collection. Everybody says it is the first appearance of Spawn, and it absolutely is not. Last year, Trent over on Spawn World he's been doing like a deep dive and going through all the old flyers and retailer newspapers and comic book magazines, and looking for all the times that Spawn has appeared in print. And actually, Malibu Sun 13 is like way down on the list. He appears like much sooner. There's several articles that have came out well before that. Now, the Malibu Sun 13, that could be, the first time he's, in a colored print ad on the front of a book. But it absolutely is not, his first appearance. And Adam, the admin over there on Spawn's Universe on Reddit, he totally agrees with me that, he's has no desire to get this book either. Now, speaking of Reddit and over there, the Spawn's Universe, if you guys head over there, he's doing a cover contest right now. So go over there and find out all the details. I'll see if I can't, put something up on screen for you here. But yeah, head over there and check it out. Something else that I found that was newsworthy. Technically, not Spawn, but it is Todd McFarlane. So I Hate Fairyland is getting ready to hit issue 50. I think it's coming up in April. I could be wrong. I think it's April. But McFarlane is doing an incentive cover. You can go over there and look it up and check it out. It is a 1 in 250. Now, I've looked at a couple different sources, and some are showing the image of Todd's cover, but they're saying it's the 1 in 100. And from what I've learned and from what I've been able to figure out, McFarlane's cover is a 1 in 250, not a 1 in 100. There's not really much else going on this week. So, as far as your Spawn Network news, that's a wrap. Now, I know the big question on everybody's mind is the giveaway. I ran the giveaway where I was giving away this. It's 100% legit, still attached to the DVD case. You're gonna get this, Spawn mini comic, with the steelbook, with the DVDs inside. The contest it ended yesterday at noon. So I went through and, compiled my list of everybody that had came over and subscribed to the channel, and I have your winner for you. Oh, wait, you guys want to know who it is? Okay. I hope that I'm not, butchering your name, and I apologize if I do, but at Axoy Turhan, looks like Turhan Axoy is your name. I will put my email, here on the screen. Go ahead and shoot me an email. Give me your contact info, and I'll get this mailed out to you. I would like to thank everybody that entered. I plan on doing future giveaways on this page. I'm going to say, it's going to take a minute, so we've got time. But I'm going to say once this page hits 500 followers, then I'm going to go ahead and do another giveaway. I say, if you guys know, I give stuff away all the time. I'm still going to continue to post my content like I normally do over on Instagram. I like to do giveaways over there. So, stay tuned. I've got, plenty of fun stuff to give away and for you guys to enjoy. We actually had a pretty light week when it comes to new comic book day this week. We did get Scorched 49. This is going to be the final issue leading up to Scorched 50, which Scorched 50 is going to be the culmination or the ending to this 3-title arc that's carried over from Kingspawn 50, Gunslinger 50, and now Scorched 50 is going to wrap it up. We're going to finally find out, what's going on with, whatever Plague is trying to do. Scorched 49 was a really good issue, and I'm really looking forward to finding out how this arc ends. The only thing else that we got this week, we did get a King Spawn trade paperback issue 7 to add to your collection. So hopefully you guys got that picked up and can add that to the shelf. All right, guys, let's get down to the real reason why we're here. The real meat and potatoes. The real can of beans on an open fire. We're here to talk about Gunslinger, right? I mean, the greatest hellspawn out there. Now, full disclosure, I'm not into westerns. I'm not into cowboys. I'm not into the old west. I don't have a pair of cowboy boots and a hat. I'm not thinking about going out and starting a ranch. I'm a city guy. I live in the city. But Gunslinger, the reason I identify with him and the reason he's my favorite is because he's considered the weakest. He's like lowest on the totem pole when it comes to hellspawn. His powers aren't as strong. And, he's underestimated. Now, myself, I go by Tiny Spawny. I'm not a little person. I'm average height. I'm 5'5". But, people kind of tend to, underestimate Gunslinger, or he has to, do things a little differently because he just doesn't have this unlimited, necroplasmic power, that he's able to use. And, so he perseveres. He figures it out. He always, wins or finds a way to defeat the bad guy. And, that's kind of my approach to life. I'm not defeating bad guys. Don't get me wrong. It's not like it's a constant battle every day that I get up, that I'm going to fight for my life. But, I adapt and overcome. People say, oh, you're short, you can't do it, whatever. And, I prove them wrong. So that's why, I identify with him so much. It has nothing to do with westerns. Now, this book is a great book. Don't get me wrong. I love it, but I don't go out of my way to watch westerns or anything like that. So I just enjoy the character himself. Now, I want you guys to let me know down in the comments, who is your favorite hellspawn? Or who is your favorite, I gotta say, character out of the whole Spawn universe? It doesn't even have to be a hellspawn. Let me know who's your favorite. When it comes to Gunslinger and my collection, I have all the usual suspects. I have the 12-inch and the 7-inch that came out from Series 27 that were based off of issue 119. I have them in box and out of box. And then I also have the more recent ones that have came out. I have the Gunslinger with the shotgun, Gunslinger with the Gatling gun, and then Gunslinger that came boxed up with the horse. So, I have all the figures. But I have one, don't tell Todd, or Todd, hey, earmuffs, okay? Flashpoint Studio, a couple years ago, put one out, and I'll put it up on screen here. It was a It was a gunslinger, but I think they called it like Gunslinger Hell Dominator. Um, it is pretty wicked. Soft good cape, metal weapons, which if you guys have it, or if you guys are able to track one down, be very, very careful. He comes with a shotgun. It seems like I think it's made out of resin. It has like a leather strap. But when I was trying to, get him set up and get him positioned, I was trying to put the shotgun, or actually I think it's a rifle, up on his shoulder. Well, it flipped and fell out and landed on the floor and like broke in half. So, I was able to glue it back together. Crisis averted. Everything's fine. But just forewarning you guys, just be careful. Also, I did not. I knew, but I wasn't sure how. But I thought, like in the print ad or on the sales post, it showed that his eyes light up. So there's no instructions that are sent with this thing. But I noticed that his eyes looked like they were like kind of silver, and so I popped his head off, and you have to take his head off, flip it over, look at his neck hole, and there's a screw in there. Take the screw out, and then you have to put in a battery. It's a CR29, I believe. I actually had to email them to ask them. I'm like, what battery goes in here? Because I tried to find one locally, and I couldn't find anything to go in there. So if you have one, pop his head off, throw a battery in there, and his eyes light up. So then you put his head back on, and you kind of he's kind of like a push button. You kind of like, push on his head, and his eyes light up. Push on his head again, the eyes go out. So, that one is pretty cool. Sorry, Todd. I do have a couple of Gunslinger pieces that I've had commissioned. I've had a couple of covers done. And when Spawn Kills Every Spawn came out, Justice Comics down in Arizona had John Layman and Rob Duenas in there. Rob drew it, John wrote it, and they were signing books and offering commissions. The Justice Comics had opened it up to people online. While they were there, if anybody wanted anything done, they could have it done. So I reached out. I said, "Hey, I'd like to have Rob Duenas do a cover for me, and I'd like to have them. I wanted to have both of them sign it and do the cover." So I paid for that, and then I'm waiting around, and finally I get contacted by Justice Comics, and they say that turns out that Rob went all ham on the cover and ended up drawing over top of John's signature. So I was sent the commission book plus another copy that was signed by both Rob and John, which I thought was pretty cool. What's really neat though is I happened to go to Rob's website the other day. He also goes by Sketchcraft Online, and my commission is actually featured on his website, which is pretty cool. Rob, if you're watching this, I absolutely love the cover. If I get to the point one day where, once I am, able to do interviews on here, I would love to have you on to be able to talk about the book and to talk about Spawn Kills Every Spawn. I've had one other commission done. There's a guy that I follow on Instagram. His name, and I apologize, buddy, if I'm butchering your name, but his name is Seth Stygian. I'll put him up here. Go over there and give him a follow. He draws like some really cool, creepy stuff. He also has like his own comic that he puts out. So I asked him, I said, "Can you do me a cover to where you have Gunslinger, fighting your guy?" Now, I didn't tell him the Gunslinger had to win, but, he ends up, letting his guy just get, blown away. So, I love this thing. Also, here's the back. How often, we've seen Spawn headless before, but, I thought that was a pretty neat little addition to the back of the book. I would say probably when it comes to Gunslinger, probably the coveted piece that I have is this here that was done by Jeff Monk. And when Jeff first posted this up, when he said it was one of the submissions that he had done for the Spawnuary cover contest, I was blown away. I'm not much into buying original art. That doesn't really appeal to me. But when I saw this thing, I was like, I have to have it. I said, hey, if you ever decide to sell this, let me know. And he said he had a bunch of people that had reached out to him, so he was going to put it up on his website. Which, guys, head over to Monk Illustrations. Check him out. He's got original art over there for sale. He's got graded books. He's got all kinds of stuff over there for stuff for anybody. So he puts it up for auction, and I get on there and I bid on it, and holy crap, I won. I could not believe that I had this thing. It is one like my favorite Gunslinger piece that I have. It's wild. Right now, it's still sitting in a portfolio, but if I can find the wall space in here, I need to get it framed and get it hung up. I've had one other commission done when I was at SpawnCon. Yes, I was at SpawnCon. Yes, it was awesome. And I plan to do a future episode about it. Todd, for the love of God, we need another one. But I digress. So, you got a chance to, meet the artists. SpawnCon was the first time I'd actually met Jonathan Galapian. I got to talk to him and tell him how much I enjoy his art, and I love his art style. And they had these little 3x5 sketch cards that, that were free. So I asked Jonathan if he would, do a little sketch for me for, Gunslinger. And he did. I came back the next day for it. I wasn't expecting him to do it right then and there. But when I got it done, I said, this is awesome. I love it. Do you mind if I get it done as a tattoo? And, he was fine with it. So, I did. And now I have a goal. And everybody that I talk to tells me it's not going to happen. But I plan to, so I got the Glapian. Now I want to get all of the, the greats that have done, Gunslinger. I'm going to get like a sleeve done. So I want to get Angel Medina. He's going to be on top. He's the father, so to speak, of Gunslinger. He's the first one to draw him. I want to get, Todd McFarlane and Greg Capullo. And everybody's telling me that Todd McFarlane and Greg Capullo are out of the question. They don't do sketches. But, Todd or Greg, if you guys are watching this, I'm not giving up. You guys, I'll put my email here on the screen. Just do a quick little Gunslinger sketch and send it my way, and I'll get it put on my arm. I'll destroy the original. I don't want the original. I'm not here to sell it. I just want to have all the greats, all in one place. Original piece on my arm. That's all I ask. It's not much. Todd never took no for an answer, and I'm not either. So help me out. Let's make this happen. Hey, a guy can dream, Candy. All right, now I know I have a lot going on, behind me back here, but if you look, I have a couple of really cool Gunslinger statues. Now, these statues were 3D printed and painted by yours truly. Now, I very recently got into painting, so I was like really impressed with myself with how well these turned out. And I'm fully aware that Gunslinger typically doesn't wear your traditional, blue jeans, but I like the way that it looked on this model. Kind of self-taught, when it comes to painting. So like a lot of dry brushing went into this. I had a lot of fun doing it. No, I'm not gonna, be, printing these and selling them. You guys can very easily find the STL files online, so you can print one for yourself. It's a lot of fun to be, the printing and the sanding and the gluing and the painting, and then to have something nice like this to display on your shelf. I do have one that I'm in the middle of. It's Gunslinger on his head on a spike, so stay tuned. I'll have that one done once I'm able to get around to it. So I mean, this was the whole reason why I bought a 3D printer. If you guys follow me on Instagram, the new background that I have, the brick wall and the Spawn logo that's up on top, I 3D printed and painted that. So I print things out of necessity, and it's a lot of fun. In the current Gunslinger title, Tobias is his essence, his spirit is inhabiting the body of Javi. All right, Javi, is a dead body. So this dead body has, I mean, even for being dead, he's been put through hell, and the body is breaking down. He's not going to be able to sustain, this shell or where he is for long. And when I happened to be on a Discord, which I've mentioned that before, and got a chance to talk to Todd. Todd had mentioned how he's kind of painted himself into a corner with Javi, with the gunslinger, because right now he's stuck in this body and he doesn't know how to get him out. Because he's going to have to be able to find someplace else to go. Well, I've came up with a solution, and Todd, you can use this if you want. I think it would be a really cool way to help the story along. So hear me out. All right. Now I know that he doesn't that Gunslinger doesn't use his chains. There's like Spawn, he doesn't use chains. But what if the Gunslinger had like a whip that he could use that would drain people's essence? All right, and that would help recharge him somewhat. Now it can't be this cure all. Here's my thought. All right, so you have Deadly Tales, and then you have the regular Gunslinger. All right, so in the Deadly Tales story, at some point, Tobias, he meets up with this voodoo witch doctor, or somebody that's into the occult, and he either befriends them or he helps them out, and this person either has in their possession or creates a whip for him that is imbued with power. All right, and in the Deadly Tales story, this thing is pretty powerful. All right, he can use it to take on enemies or manipulate things, but it's like maybe like one big burst, like it has to recharge. Okay, so he can't use it all the time, like it's not gonna solve all of his problems, but if he gets in a pinch, he's like, hey, I can pull out that whip and save the day. Well, in the Deadly Tales story, he he leaves it somewhere, or he loses it, and doesn't have it, it's not in his possession. All right, so let's fast forward to the present day where we are, where Tobias is occupying the Javi body, and he knows that he's weak, he's beaten down, he's got to do something. So he goes in search of, he's like, I lost this whip over here. So, maybe, all this time later, I can go find it. All right, so he goes on this journey and he tracks it down and he finds it. All right. And it's not as powerful as it used to be. And we're talking about, like 200 some years have passed. It's not as great as it was, but it has just enough magic to where in a pinch, or if he needs to, he can use it to zap a little life out of his victim, or to get a little boost to keep him going. It's not going to be the cure all. It's not going to fix him, but then after a while it recharges and he can grab some more. So I think that would be a really cool way to to balance it out and to keep it going. I mean, I'm not saying that the hobby body is going to last forever, but that's just one solution to the problem, to be able to keep him going. So I mean, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. How we can save Javi. I've talked before about the Kickstarter that Todd has done. He's done the regular Spawn. He's done medieval Spawn, and I mentioned earlier, he has said in a couple different interviews that originally the plan was to remake the original 6. Well, he's since kind of backed away from that because he's thinking he doesn't think that like a Tremor or an Overkill Kickstarter project like that would go over as well as the other one. So he says that he might move into a different direction. But every time he says that, his go-to is Gunslinger. So fingers crossed, but I'm fairly confident that the next Kickstarter that is going to come out, which I have not heard anything, I have not heard like any kind of a date, no release. So this is just speculation. But I believe that the next one is going to be the Gunslinger. So I think that they should do different versions, because the Jeremy Winston Gunslinger and the Tobias Gunslinger are different. They look different. That's why the newer Gunslinger has the shorter hat, because he is not Jeremy Winston. So I think they should do, the different ones. I think that they definitely need to include, um, if you end up going with the whip idea, I doubt it, but you could put the whip in there. You need to put in a set of wings, and on all of his weapons. Um, I really hope that the next one is, the next Kickstarter is Gunslinger. I mean, cloth goods cape or jacket um, would really rock. So fingers crossed that the next Gunslinger or the next Kickstarter that we get is Gunslinger. Because if so, take my money now because I'm going to buy it. As far as Gunslinger's introduction into the Spawn universe, we first get introduced to him in issue 119. He shows up in one of the panels. Now, I've talked to Medina about this, and McFarlane, the direction that he gave him for this issue was, he said that, on this page, he wanted, to be filled up with different Hellspawn from different eras throughout history. So that's where the Gunslinger came from. He just, he was there kind of like in the background. And then we see nothing of him. We hear nothing about the Gunslinger until we get to issue 174. Now, 174 has the unique honor of having, I believe, the only cover to where Spawn is misspelled. If you look down the left-hand side, down at the bottom, it is spelled S-P-A-N-W. Now, they have the same kind of wording over on 175, but they corrected it, in the following month. But on this issue, it's misspelled. I don't think that's what adds value to the book. I think it's just that it's, the Gunslinger story. So 174 and 175 are standalone books. They don't tie into the main story. But 174 is our introduction to Gunslinger Spawn, like where he came from. And in this story, Gunslinger's name is Jeremy Winston. Now, for those of you that haven't read it, I'm not going to, give it away. It is a really good 2-part little story. So, I would hope you guys, go check it out. Or if you've already read it, let me know what you guys think about the Jeremy Winston story. All right, so 174 and 175 are two of the probably like mainline, just normal, not incentive books, but just regular books that are, up there in price. And when I got back into collecting Spawn, I did not have 174 and 175. And at that time, I was like, there is no way I'm going to have these books. Like, this is crazy how much money they're wanting for them. So, I started putting money away. And, I would see them come up on eBay. And, I'd always bet and then just get way outbid. And I'm like, there's no way. So, 2022, another set came up on eBay. And I'm like, okay, I got this. So I played it smart. I didn't bid right away. I think when I found it, it said 6 days left. So I was just watching it and watching it and watching it. And it was getting down like all the way to the end. 0 bids. Nobody was touching it. I'm like, okay, I'll play your game. So it gets down to, and I'm still watching it. It's down to maybe like the last 30 minutes. So finally I'm like, okay. I put in my bid. And then a few minutes later, somebody raised the bid. And, we're going back and forth. And, it's getting down to the last, few minutes. And we keep going back and forth, I don't remember if it was the same person or not. But then it's getting down to the last seconds. And I'm like, come on. I'm like, I'm going to lose this book again. So it's down to the wire. And they make a bid. And I bid again. And then they make a bid, and there's like a couple seconds left. So I click it again. And then I'm sitting there holding my breath because the screen is spinning and it says, auction is ended. And then all of a sudden it comes up and it says, you won. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, okay, I've finally got them. So, got the books paid for, and I was excited. I knew they were like decent books. Because I looked at the pictures online, but I was just blown away that I had finally actually had them. And guys, check out I don't have anything in the picture for scale, but check out the size box this guy sent them in. I was like, good Lord. he made sure like they were super protected. He had them like in a box, it was like a Russian nesting doll. It was like a box in a box in a box. So I mean, this guy took great strides to make sure that they arrived safely, because I'm thinking like I have $1,000 worth of comics just being sent through the mail, and we've seen Gemini mailers get smashed before. So the fact that this seller took the time to put it in this giant box, I truly appreciate it. So if you happen to be watching, thank you. They got to me safely. Now for the books themselves, they look pristine. Like they look like they just came off the printing press. There are 0 spine ticks. There are 0 color breaks. There is 0 spine roll, and all the corners are mint. So C2E2 is coming up at the end of the month, and you're going to be able to take your books there and get them graded live. Now, I have not personally ever had, books graded. I have plenty of graded books in my collection, but I have not had any graded myself, nor have I been to C2E2. So this is going to be a lot of fun. So once the show's over, I'll let you guys know, what kind of grading I got. But those 2 books, I feel like definitely need to be like, encapsulated, graded, whatever, because I don't want anything to happen to them. Now, after issue 175, we don't hear any more about Gunslinger. We don't hear about Gunslinger again, or he doesn't even come up until, during COVID, the TMP announces that they're going to be launching the Spawn universe, which I was stoked. So he announces the Spawn universe and says that we're going to have main title Spawn, King Spawn, the Scorched, and Gunslinger. And I was excited. I couldn't wait for this to come out. All right, so I read all of them, but Gunslinger I was the most excited for. So it comes out, I'm reading it, I'm loving it, but as the months go, I start to realize I'm like, this isn't your granddad's Gunslinger. This is not Jeremy Winston. I said, who is this? Because they're calling him Javi, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense. So the Gunslinger, the Gunslinger title has the Gunslinger in present day. And the reason that Gunslinger is, in our present day is because when Spawn, had the big boom in issue 300 and, totally disrupt everything, it pulled the Gunslinger from the past to present day. All right, so he's in present day, and they're calling him Javi. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. That's not Jeremy. Who is this guy? Well, the Gunslingers, it didn't pull, his body, from the blast. It pulled, his essence, his spirit. It brought the Gunslinger, but not in physical form. So he had to have a body to inhabit. So he's in this body called, the guy's name is Javi. It was a dead guy, jumped in the body. You guys can, read the story to find out exactly what happens. But still, as I'm reading this, I'm like, this is not Jeremy. This is not the Gunslinger from 174 and 175. So I was confused, as I'm sure a lot of you out there were. If you weren't, kudos to you. But as you know, I get to set in on interviews with Tommy over at World of War Comics. You guys should go over there and check out some of those interviews. You can find them on there. I've gotten to interview Thomas Healy, Jimmy Palmiotti, Jonathan and Daniel from the Curse of Shirley Johnson. It's a lot of fun doing these interviews, and I plan to do them here, in the future. But we were interviewing, I believe it was the first interview that I had with Thomas Healy. And, after the interview, we're talking for a little bit, and I said, hey, could you clear something up for me? I'm a little confused as far as the Gunslinger goes, because to me, that's not Jeremy. And he points out, Gunslinger issue 1 is not Jeremy Winston. But if you read the book, if you go to the end, there is a short story, it's a few pages called The Gift. In that story, that is Jeremy Winston. All right. And within that story, Jeremy hands his knife to a boy named Tobias. All right. Right here. All right. Tobias is actually the current gunslinger. All right. So bear with me here. I'll explain. Okay. So the gunslinger title that we currently have, this guy's name back in the past is Tobias. All right. Tobias becomes a gunslinger. Tobias is the one that is pulled from the past to the present, not Jeremy. Okay, so essentially we have two different gunslingers. All right, so when Tobias's spirit gets drugged from the past to the future during Spawn's like big boom, all right, he inhabits a body of a guy that was murdered, and his name was Javi. Okay, so Tobias and Javi are the same person. Jeremy is a completely different person. Okay, so we essentially have two gunslingers. All right, so the current title is, Tobias, because, he's this gunslinger. His purpose is, his sister Amy was murdered. Okay, and he's on this quest, or he's out there trying to avenge the death of his sister. That's his drive. That's what his motivation is. Jeremy, back in the past, in 174 and 175, was wrongfully accused and convicted of something, and then, just ends up getting, revenge. So we have two different standalone gunslingers. So current day, we have Tobias, aka Javi, that is, moving through this. That is his story. Now, more recently, we got Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger, which takes place, in the Old West. All right. It's a period book. And like I said, I'm not into Westerns. I don't get into all that stuff. But, Gunslinger, I don't care what environment you put him in, I'm going to read it. I'm going to enjoy it. So you don't have to like Westerns to be into this. But, it's Gunslinger. He's my guy. So this is Tobias in the past. This shows how he's come into his powers, how he's figuring out, trying to figure out what's going on, trying to, make his way in life and, still, avenge the death of his sister. All right. So right now, the only thing that we have is just one gunslinger. All right. We have Tobias. Now, I did mention that I have interviewed Jimmy Palmiotti. And I posed the question. I said, okay, this is Tobias. I get it. I stand behind it. I'm all for it. I said, at some point in the story, I said, are Jeremy and Tobias going to be, in the same place? Because as of right now, we don't know where Jeremy is. He's there somewhere, but he has not been introduced into the story yet. So he says yes. At some point, he is going to come in. There's going to be, they're going to have, story together. So right now, we are just following, Tobias. And, it's a great story. It doesn't, matter if I'm reading it, the Deadly Tales or the regular Gunslinger. They're both great stories, and you should definitely check them out. As most of you know, or if you follow me over on Instagram, I like to do giveaways. I like to give back to the Spawn community as a whole. If I, find something out in the wild that, if I'm able to grab, two of them, or if I have any extra comics, I like to give them away. I'm all about giving back to the Spawn community. I didn't start this channel with the goal of making money. I'm not trying to make money on my Instagram. I'm just trying to share, my love for Spawn. That's it. So I give back to the community and, just try to bring everybody together. So when somebody reaches out to me and says they want to give me something, I'm not used to that. I don't really know, what to say. So I said, thank you. I had one of my followers over on Instagram. His name is Sam. He goes by Shadow Spawn. He reached out and said that my content and the creation of this YouTube channel had inspired him to start posting his Spawn stuff again. And I thought that was awesome. You know, that I got more people out there that are wanting to share their collection and their love for Spawn. So he reached out again and said to celebrate the launch of my channel that he wanted to send me something. And I said, okay. So I gave him my address. He sent me a package and he asked, did I record a video of myself opening it? Which I did. I got the package last night. Didn't open the box, sat down here in front of the computer, started recording a video. Well, here recently I've done some, modifications, changed up the lighting, got a new mic stand, got a new camera. As you can see, I look a little better. Well, I didn't check to make sure that all my settings were right. So I make this 7-minute unboxing video, which, I said I was going to do unboxing on here. I meant action figures. I was not expecting anybody to send me anything in the mail. So if a package, I was opening a package. I have this 7-minute video without audio. So Sam, I am sorry. I can send you an audio-less video of me opening it. But unfortunately, I was going to, include that here, and I really can't. There's no audio. So, Sam sent me some graded books and a signed print from Greg Capullo, which, I am forever grateful for. These are going to be treasured pieces of my collection. But here's what he sent me, all right? I'm just going to show you here. So, I have a Spawn 356 Mark Spears cover in a 9/8, all right? Sorry about the lighting. Okay. Love this book. He sent me a Spawn 235 in a 9/8. All right. From the low print run era. All right. Love this cover. And then how about a King Spawn number 21 Jonathan Galapian cover in a 9/8. I love Jonathan's work. This is a beautiful book. Sam, I don't know what to say. I'm speechless. I'm not used to being on the receiving end of a gift. So I am forever grateful. I truly appreciate it. I hope you continue to enjoy my content. I do it for you guys. I do it for myself. I have a lot of fun doing this. So, like I said, I'm going to release these episodes on Sunday. And next week, I'm going to do it's going to be not really a 2-part, but next week I plan to cover the Spawn Kills Every Spawn miniseries, which I absolutely love, and another great miniseries that we need part 2s to both of these. We need more, but I'm also going to do Black Ritual, the Book of Nyx, that was written by none other than Thomas Healy. Both of these are great books. I want to do kind of a deep dive into them, and I want to share them with you guys. So I hope you guys are enjoying what I'm doing. I hope you guys are going to stick around and come back next week because I got a lot more to tell you. See ya.
As far as I know, I'm already dead, which means I'm waiting for your sorry ass in the afterlife.